Welcome. Yes, Sports Reports is ordered is back, and you are listening to the sounds of Mr. Logical in 2-5. So, tonight, the NBA Finals are here. Denver versus Miami, like we always knew it was going to happen, right?
Shout out to Ben Simmons. What up?
Then, Boston. Woo! That's all I can say. Then we're going to talk about the NFL's new kickoff rule, which is nothing more than college football's kickoff rule. Then the last thing before I get it off my chest are the Colorado Buffaloes on the move. And please, America, somebody out there, please get Scottie Pippen some help. That man is not okay. What's up, Mr. Logical?
Chillin', man. Just got The Last Dance in the background, since we'll talk about basketball and the allure and the history and,
Shout out to Zeke.
Shout out to Ben Simmons, Philadelphia. Like, I bought this jersey. I think he still might have been on the team or right when they traded him to Brooklyn. Yeah. I think I got it from Champs for like $20. Just because it was $20, I was like, yeah, I'll get it. I mean, it's authentic little jersey. I mean, it's nice, and I didn't think I was gonna ever wear it. This is the first time I probably had it on. I tried it on when I bought it, and then all of a sudden, we get this podcast. So you know what? Let me break this out. This, it's our thing with the jerseys and all of that. So shout out to business, man. Come back strong.
Well, I was being real indecisive, so I just ended up with the plant and my Roswell shirt. Shout out to all my aliens out there. Saying get up.
Apparently they real.
Yeah, that whole city, man. Like, soon as you walk in or get there, like I was driving down the street, they had little green dudes in front of the hotel. They had little green dudes by the gas station. I was just like, damn, they really
lean into it.
Oh, and speaking of New Mexico, real quick before we get started, I know nobody cares about New Mexico, but I'm going to say this anyway. Las Vegas, New Mexico. Y'all better get some T-shirts and some shot glasses and, like, do the real Las Vegas thing or something like that. Give me a reason to come back.
Are you talking about, like, how Paris, Texas and Paris, Tennessee and London, Ontario?
Yeah, Canada, like, you got to have a little mini Eiffel. Yeah, you got to have something.
It's a legit mini Eiffel in, like, Paris, Tennessee.
You know what I'm saying? But Mr. Logical. Boston fell short in their attempt to become the first team to come back from a 3-0 series deficit. The record is now 0-151. So Miami is, they had their tickets for Denver. They're going to get to use them. Do they got a chance? Do they got a chance?
I'll say this. There's always like this conventional wisdom that you can get too much rest in a playoff series. One team is playing for their life, and you're on easy street 6, 7, 8 days off. You can come in a little lax. From the way Mike Malone was coaching him on the bench, losing his voice in that series against the Lakers, I don't think he's gonna let up now. First time the team's been in the NBA Finals. You got a 2-time MVP, and the knock on him was he couldn't lead a team to the finals. So I think they'll be ready. And unlike when we'll get into Boston specifics and everything else, I think the way Denver runs their offense, man, it's effective because they have a playmaker who can dribble drive that they trust in Jamal Murray, young, active, score, short memory, very humble, fits into the system. And then they have a humble superstar that can play at the hoop or he can play 26 feet out. So when you have that, and then you have guys that just kind of know their role. KCP, he knows I'm going to come off this screen and Jokic is going to see me. I'm going to get this 3-point shot. Aaron Gordon knows I'm going to run the lane on this fast break. They're going to throw it up to me. I'm a slam dunk champion, even though he got robbed a couple of times, and I'm going to dunk it. Michael Porter Jr., same thing. I think they just know when Bruce Brown comes into the game. It's just something about the way that the way they flow. I know the Lakers, they swept the Lakers, and it looked tough, and the Lakers had a nice little run. But the way they got back in the game was Jamal Murray saw a couple free throws go through. I think he got about 4 free throws, and then he shot this little jumper in game 2. But that whole time, Jokic was steady. They just never look rattled. I think Miami's leverage on teams is they don't have the most talent. They just have the most tenacity. And tenacity can rattle you. I don't think Denver gets rattled because I think what they do so well is just ingrained in their offense. It's you don't need a Herculean performance from any of their stars. They Jokic went 30, 20, and 10 in game 1, and no one talked about it because it just looked like that's what he was going to do. It just looked like he was going to get you 30. He looked like he was going to get you 13, 15, and 15.
Mm-hmm.
But then when he gets you 30, 20, and like damn near 15, and yeah, they said, did he run out of gas in the fourth quarter? Yeah, but they was up 20. And then Jamal Murray, got his little buckets, and then even AD in game 1 got the 40, but it did AD's 40 didn't look as effective as Jokic's 32. Because I think his 40 came with like 7 rebounds, whereas Jokic's 32 came with 20 plus rebounds. And I think he had more rebounds than the Lakers had total rebounds, like the first half. It was crazy. So I I don't want to say sweep because I gotta give Miami a shot, but if it goes 6, I'd be surprised.
Well, yeah, I wrote down 6. Like, and all I know is I don't know how many games it's going to go, but Miami ain't going to win. That's all I know right now. So I was looking back, and I know regular season doesn't matter, but I went back to look at this when they played each other, twice this year, once in December, once in February. The Nuggets won both games, 1-5, 1-4. Jimmy Butler averaged 20 and a half points, 8.5 assists, and 8 rebounds, 42% shooting. Bam Adebayo, 20 and a half with 4.5 rebounds and 43% shooting. Jokic, on the other hand, 30, 13, and 10.
And that's
But
the standard game for him. This playoff runs, I think that's what he's averaging.
and the good news for Miami is that if Bam Adebayo can score 20 points, they're 6-0 in this playoff run. But the bad news is he only scored 20 points 6 times.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, I'm doing the math. I was like, they played a lot of games. They just
Yeah.
played 7 against Boston.
So Miami was fortunate, and I know this sounds stupid now after the fact, because Boston was the 2 seed and everything. But Boston shot 30% on 38 threes per game. Denver's not going to shoot 30% from 3.
No.
Even if they have a bad game, even if they have a 11 for 46 type game, it's going to average out. Whereas Boston has guys that want to shoot the ball. Denver has guys that can shoot the ball.
Yeah, we're definitely going. We would definitely have our Boston talk here in one of our segments. In the A block or the B block as they call it in the radio world. But yeah, like I said, I think Denver's role players. I know I picked the Lakers in 7 in the Western Conference Finals because I was like, you know what? Maybe this is just the year that it just comes together for the Lakers. They were. I thought they were the different team. They were the defensive team. They just ran so many big bodies at you. And then what I realized is that all those big bodies that ran at Jokic, he literally like something that his teammates interview. They talk about is like you can't speed them up. Like you can look at some players, you can just see like sometimes with Kevin Durant, you can just see that
He's
the
pressing.
defender is
Mhm.
pressing him and he's pressing. Sometimes even with LeBron, when he's having one of those nights where it's like he's not shooting well, but he's like, I got to get to the cup. You can see sometimes he can be a little pressed. AD, but those guys use speed as part of their advantage on the floor. Jokic just use vision. So I can't go fast and see stuff. Like everyone's seen the previews for the Flash. The faster you go, the harder it is to visualize on something. So I think the fact that Jokic, any defender that Miami runs at him is best case scenario 4 inches shorter, within 4 inches shorter, maybe 20, 25 pounds lighter. You bring Kevin Love, and Kevin Love is what we call Kevin Love 6'10.
I think
We'll
he's more like
call it
yeah. I was gonna say I
we'll
think he's more like
call it
6'8".
6'10.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's more like 6'8". Yeah.
so even if we call it 6'10, Jokic is still 7 foot 7'1", and Kevin Love slim. Then you got Cody Zellner. I keep getting his name
Zeller.
wrong.
Yeah. Cody
Zeller.
Zeller. Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably a long 6'11", but he's probably 6'11", 211. Can't do much with Jokic. Then you have Bam, who is going to be at certain points throughout the game a focal point offensively. And the way he gets the ball, it's a lot of movement. So it's a lot of energy
hmm
exerted just to get him to the ball. A lot of dribbles from the elbow. So it's a lot of energy. Jokic is going to be like,
hmm
it's like, all right, cool. Like, if you get close, I'll try to defend it. If not, you can dribble out there all day. But when I get this ball, I'm gonna go down to the block and I'm gonna make you defend me for 7 or 8 dribbles, and then I'm gonna shoot some crazy off foot sombrero spin around one hand floater that's gonna hit all net, and it's gonna deject you every single time it happens.
Yeah. So is Bam basically like Aaron Gordon without the want to sometimes? Because I was watching him last night and there were times he had Dirk White on him, or he had Smart on him or whatever, and he was just like shooting fadeaways, like not going
Because
to
he
the
gets because everything it goes through him because he's the second guy when he probably should be the third guy.
hmm
So it's trying. It's if Jalen if it went Tatum, Al Horford, and there was no Jalen Brown. So now you work in the Tatum outside and Horford inside. Horford is he's a good basketball player. He played a lot of years in the league, couple national championships out down in Florida, but he can't be your second option. He can't be your guy like the way LeBron can be your number one and AD can be your number two. Is all right, give him the ball, let him work through the post. They play Bam that way because I don't think they have a second guy. If they had Hero and it could go Jimmy, Tyler, and then Bam could just kind of save energy, just offensive rebound and get points that way. And that's why, like I said, we're getting to Boston.
right.
I think Denver will take advantage of that because they're going to make him either defend Aaron Gordon because because Spo is going to come up with the plan for Jokic, and you
hmm
can't have Bam because you need Bam offensively. So he's going to put somebody out there that he thinks can defend Jokic, and Jokic is going to just nickel and dime him all over the floor.
Word on the street is Hero will be back for Game 3, and it kind of made me think. I know it's not really equivalent, but it made me think of Jameer Nelson when Rayford Alston was when he came back, and when Jameer came back, Rayford Alston was playing well, and then it just messed up that dynamic. So I don't know if Tyler Hero. I think they'll welcome him back because they probably need the scoring, but I guess the key here, when the Lakers were playing Denver, I was saying that I thought the key was you can't let Jokic be a passer. I mean, but then again, I don't know how you really stop him either. But you can't let him be a passer. But with Miami, I think the key is he's shown against the Lakers a propensity to commit fouls. So if you could get him in foul trouble, then that might help you out a little bit because when he's on the floor, and this is since 2021, the 2021-2022 season, when Jokic is on the floor, Denver is 10.2 points per 100 possessions. And when he's not on the floor, they're negative 8.9. So foul trouble. You gotta use your quickness against him while he's playing defense. And he also will run over you too. We saw that against the Lakers too. He'll just run over you if you're in the
Yeah,
way.
but I
Um,
think now I think they'll get him more breaks because he won't. I don't think he'll be tested on
mhm,
either end of the floor. I think
yep,
offensively, he shoots so awkwardly. Someone's gonna get their hand in the cookie jar. He's gonna be at the free throw line, where I think
mhm.
he's like an 80% free throw shooter, 80
And then
plus.
Denver. So Miami, throughout this playoff run, besides the Knicks series, they were just over their heads from 3-point range. From the playoffs, from the regular season to the playoffs, they went up 5% from 3-point shots. But Denver can shoot just as good or better. And let's not forget, I know Miami's on this run, and I know it's awesome because the lowest seed to ever win a title was a 6
They
seed.
just had an 0-3 lead go to Game 7, so
I
let's not
know.
talk about
Well,
what kind
I
of
was
run
well,
they're
I was
on.
going to bring up the fact. I was going to bring up the fact that they lost in the play-in game. I was going to bring that up. They lost to Atlanta, who is a decent shooting team, without some of the parts that Denver has. Miami's just been red hot, basically, and I think that the other record that I thought of was
The East
Miami.
is weak. No I'm joking. I just want
My,
to speak that out.
Miami is 6-2 when making at least 40% of their threes. So 8-game sample there. Caleb Martin, unsung hero. People were saying that he should have won MVP over Jimmy Butler.
Van Gundy was hyping it for 2 games. He didn't. He was saying it in Game 6 that he thought that Caleb Martin was the
most valuable player. Like
most valuable player.
I understand it in some ways, but
Game 6, and then in Game 7 he comes out. He's 11 for 15,
26 points. Yep, and he only averaged 9 during the regular season. But I get it. But at the same time, like a lot of what Miami is able to do is predicated on Jimmy and what the defense is reacting to him doing. So there's a lot of open players just because of the attention to Jimmy.
Yeah,
but Caleb,
Caleb
grabbed it.
averaged over 20 points in the 7-game series, and he started the series out on the bench, and then you move into the starting lineup, and he improved.
And then, by the way,
in the midst of your losing streak when you had a 3-0 lead, just throwing it out there. Because Iguodala got a Finals MVP off that same basic concept.
And then, by the way, Denver has 6 people. You know what? Never mind. I ain't gonna say that right now. Denver actually has.
Got him on a tangent.
No, I was like looking at myself, and I was thinking about the intro, and like with this hat, I was like, I kind of look Scottie Pippen-ish, but that's what I was thinking. That's what I was just like, what? But anyway,
am I high like Scottie?
Yeah, but Denver actually has 6 players averaging double figures. So even if Jokic or Murray,
it's gonna be a sweep, man.
Even if
I will call him. Sorry.
Well, right before we recorded,
there's no way. There's no like. I would say there's. I don't want to say there's no way, but Miami doesn't play well at home. People they were talking about the Miami fans and the Miami faith. I'm like, listen, I remember Game 6 back in the day when people were trying to bang their way back into the arena when the game went to overtime. And I've seen the years after when there was no number 6 playing there, and you come back from commercial, and it's like, is it that many people at concession stands, or do they not have that many fans there? Then the fans come back when they're hot. It's Miami. It's like, so like people need to stop. We got to stop front. I get it. They're a tough team. We love Jimmy Butler. We love Eric Spoelstra, but they definitely had a 0-3 lead that if any credible coach, if they subbed out Nick Nurse for Missoula yesterday, he would have won that game. If you would have put Doc Rivers in there, Doc Rivers would be like,
let's not get crazy now.
I think we should go to the paint a little more.
Well, matter of fact, while we were on it,
think Jeff Van Gundy could have came in there. Somebody else would have been like, yo, you are doing this wrong. Why are you shooting 21st? We'll get into Boston.
Yeah, while we're on it, congrats Nick Nurse, new head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. So,
shout out Philly.
But yeah, and also by the way, Denver hasn't lost at home yet in the playoffs.
They will get swept. They will get swept. These dudes after Game 4 in Miami, Jokic Finals MVP. He's gonna hoist a trophy. His brother's gonna get arrested. It's gonna be bananas. One of them's gonna punch a horse.
I was gonna bring that up.
It's gonna be nuts.
I was gonna bring that up.
They got a little beef with the Miami.
Yeah, Markieff Morris. Or Marcus, one of the two. But yeah, so Denver hasn't lost at home in these playoffs. So that's another thing going against Miami. So where Miami, I guess Spo is just going to have to cook up something in the lab, and he is capable of cooking up something. But that might be good enough to get a game, possibly two.
If he has a 6'11" guy on the roster that he doesn't use much, but is active and they can like play
Well, how
him and he
tall
can.
is how tall is Yurtsevin?
Yeah, I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to go to that
he's
wishing
he's
well.
7 feet. He's 7 feet. I had
How
to
much
look it
does
up.
he weigh?
264.
You might have to put him in there.
Yeah, you might have to put him in there. That's why I was telling you they might have to
Like,
put Kevin Love in there just to have another body with
yeah,
size.
it was
Like
the
he's not
same
going to
thing when I
stop
was
with
like,
it.
you got to put Tristan Thompson in the game just to have another dude that's close to
Mhm.
6'10" that at least at a minimum can make Jokic see something different because that's the telltale thing, and that's why coaching matters. Coaching matters in football, and from a preparedness standpoint, but the players really make it work because you can have a great defensive coach, but if your free safety is out of position twice against any good quarterback or any wide receiver, like if you're out of position twice against Patrick Mahomes, he's gonna make you pay. Joe
Two
Burrow's gonna make
touchdowns.
you pay. That's probably 2 touchdowns. Even right now with Tua and Tyreek and Waddle, that speed. If you have your head turned the wrong way, you could get beat. So, but in the NBA with coaching, it's you have to be able to recognize the tendencies of your own team and the other team, and you might have to just give the other guy a different look. You can run your same concept, but you might have to just say, you know what, I need to get a different level of energy in the game. So I'm gonna take you out of the starting lineup, D'Lo, and I'm gonna put Austin Reeves in your spot.
Well,
Or I'm gonna take you out and I'm gonna sub you with Tristan Thompson to give him a different body. At least give him that because in that game four, I mean, they only lost. The score was 113, 111. You talk about the LA Denver series. So it does work. But if you can't give a team that's been together this whole year, that continuity, if you can't give them anything that kind of messes up the feng shui of how they play, it's more likely going to be a sweep because it's like if they know, all right, Gabe Vincent's going to come double off of KCP, then Jokic just be like, that's money because Gabe Vincent's like 6'2", 6'3". I'm gonna throw over the top, and then someone's gonna come off Michael Porter Jr., get into the corner,
this is his
Aaron
series.
Gordon. It's like so. It's if you do that every time because Boston was doing that against Embiid, They kept running the no Brooklyn in the Brooklyn series way back when the playoffs first started. They kept doubling off the nearest guy to Embiid. Whoever the nearest other defender was, just would run at Embiid. And at some point, I forgot who was calling that game. They were like, you either might have to just stop doing that and just leave Embiid one on one and see if his energy is right, because I know he always kind of stumbles into the playoffs, or you got to show it harder. Like you got to go all out and fully commit, or you got to stop doing it because Brooklyn did it so much. It was like he knew exactly when it was coming, and he would just
Yeah.
kick it to Maxey, and then Maxey would just be wide open. It's like,
Yeah. And that's why this is Michael Porter's series, I believe, because Jamal Murray is going to have moments where he goes scorch level and they're going to have to react probably and put Jimmy Butler on him, or maybe um, Caleb Martin, can pick him up in some possessions. But then if Murray does get hot, Jokic is going to be doing his thing. So who's going to guard Porter? Jimmy can't be two places at once.
and Jokic loves when Murray gets hot. He will dribble handoff with Murray for a whole half and not take one shot. He will just literally screen and get Murray open. Because when Murray
It's,
when Murray goes for 50, in those games when Murray's at 20, and it's like, he's getting there. That's why he has so many of these 20-point quarters, because Jokic's like, I will literally feed you the ball
mhm.
if you're hot. Because
and
I can get this shot. He's like, I can get this off all day. This
and
way
and
back here, but he's like, oh, you hot? Okay, cool.
and poor,
We running this dribble handoff and see what you can do.
and poor Duncan Robinson. Like he's gonna come in the game, he'll hit a shot or two, and then barbecue
Pick and
chicken.
roll. They're gonna pick roll him to death.
To death. You know what was it? Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
then you're gonna bring in Tyler Hero, and they're gonna do the same thing.
Yeah, and you
And
can't play them at the same time.
yeah, Shannon Sharp said this. It was because Skip Bayless said, Tyler Hero could be back for this. Is before like Miami clinched the series. He was like, if Miami makes NBA Finals, Tyler Hero can come. No, he said maybe you could bring Tyler Hero back before the Boston series ended. And Shannon Sharp like, listen, man, they're gonna be slapping that hand. He's like, he better be ready. He's like, I know we did it in the NFL. You come back with an ankle if you want. Too early. We go either keep cutting you on that side, and we'll step on it.
Yeah, and they're gonna need. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Miami's gonna need Kyle Lowry. They're gonna need that.
I like the way Kyle Lowry plays.
I do too. I mean, I'm an old man, so I mean, it resonates with me.
They're gonna put him on Jamal Murray and try to frustrate him, because like I said, I talk about this. Kyle Lowry's old. He's like our age. He's pushing 40.
I think he's 37. I think he's
37, 38. Yeah. So that's like, junkyard dog attitude, Philly guy, like just a grinder. And I think if Jamal Murray gets hot, they'll stick Kyle Lowry out there and be like, all right, man, you got 2 fouls.
Yep. And that's when Michael Porter. And that's when Michael Porter goes ham. And also, like, I was criticizing Aaron Gordon the first couple of games against the Lakers because it seemed as though he wanted no part of the action. He wasn't setting screens. He just kind of found a spot on the court and just kind of hang out. He got a little more active as the series went on. So
was LeBron guarding him?
At that early, not at that point, not at the point that I'm thinking of.
They might have wanted to just keep him out of the action because because LeBron, if he's in the middle of the action, he can point. But if you just leave him on Aaron Gordon in the corner, then he can't really affect.
But this is also a series for him to reestablish himself.
Oh yeah, he's gonna average like 14 points, 7-8 rebounds, couple of blocks. He's probably gonna defend Bam, so he's gonna get his fouls off on Bam. They probably, like I said, I don't know where you put Jokic if he's not defending Bam, because I don't know. I would rather have, unless you put him out on Strus,
and I don't think you can do the Rui. I don't think you could do the Rui thing. I don't think you can put Jimmy Butler on Jokic for long periods of time.
I think you can try it. You can try it, but you have to be able to run at least 2 or 3 of those. 2 or 3 of those things have to be effective, because one isn't, then they're gonna figure out the other 2. So like, you got, like, if it's a Jimmy Butler in his hip, he's like, all right, cool. Where's Bam coming from? Because that's your only help. I mean, you're not gonna send Strus, you're not gonna send Vincent, you're not gonna send Duncan Robinson. So Bam's the help. So that means you're running your best 2 defenders at the one guy who doesn't mind passing the ball to the other 4 shooters. I don't think that's the recipe.
I'm giving Miami 2. I'm gonna give Jimmy Butler 1. But just because of the heart, the intensity.
You got Jimmy Butler just off intensity getting you 1 win.
Yeah, and then
the team
then Denver's going to have an off shooting game that gets Miami a second one. Because it's got to come back. I always say it's got to come back to its mean.
I'm gonna go ahead and give Miami 0 games. Because I don't think people are going to call. Like, I legitimately believe that they will sweep Miami. It won't be. I don't think it'll be like, they're killing them by 20 or 30. But I think it'll be a couple of, like, the first quarter of game 1. I can see Denver dropping 34, 36 points and being up 34, 36, 18 after the first quarter. Or 36-21, something like that after the first quarter.
Those shots got to fall for Miami. That's
at home, the energy, first time NBA Finals.
Well, I mean, they could come out. They could come out a little tight.
Anyone with the knee soreness, ankle soreness, shoulder soreness, anything where you can just sleep and heal, they're all good right now for Denver. 8 days with essentially no contact. And it's not like they're gonna forget how to play basketball. They're at game 100.
No, but they could come out. They could come out tight from the nerves. They could come out tight from the nerves. There was 82 games. So there were 82 games, 4 playoff games that they won in each series. They lost 2 to Phoenix, lost 1 to Minnesota. So about 97 games.
Yeah.
Right. So this will be game 98.
98 games. They've gotten 8 days rest. Meanwhile, Miami, Jimmy Butler's ankles getting rolled every single night. I can't recall a guy getting stepped on by his own teammate more than Jimmy Butler did in game 6 and 7. Bam stepped on him. I think Strus fell on him. Gabe Vincent fell on him. Gabe Vincent hurt his own ankle. They just were falling on top of each other off so many rebounds.
Do not, and I repeat, do not say the word ankle around Boston fans right now. Do not say that word, because Jason Tatum's ankle to them defined game 7. No, Boston lost this series in games 1, 2, and 3.
It's just, if you the way I'm calling sweep for Denver against Miami, short of having the 7-foot playmaker, Boston's team was built to beat Miami, but they just maybe I'm not seeing it right.
It's right here.
But Robert Williams and Horford should have spent more time on the floor together, because Miami had no answer for that. Because what you were doing, you could have gone, and I was saying this a lot as I was watching, especially their comeback run. Because like I said, I missed a couple of games because I was sick. But the comeback run, games 4, 5, 6, and 7. You put Horford and Robert Williams on the floor, you can still run Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. That's your 3 offensive players. Horford is your smart screen guy who can also pick and pop. And then Williams is your rebounder. But instead, you run Grant Williams out there with Horford being your big man. And now Horford is your pick and pop guy. He's kicking it to Grant Williams, who went like 0 for 30, it seemed like, over the last couple of games. And then you also got him trying to rebound. So Bam was killing him on the offensive rebounds. I'm like, just put Robert Williams in there, and you can put Robert Williams in there, throw the lobs to him, get you quick 8 points off of just getting to the rim. Put the pressure on Miami, because Miami didn't run a big. At some point in game 7, I believe, I think Miami had Highsmith, Butler, Duncan Robinson, Vincent, Strus on the floor. Instead, Van Gundy was like, they're tiny. He was like, I mean, they're NBA players, but this is, I know. He's like, I understand going small, but this is tiny.
Ridiculous.
And I'm like, Boston, yo, come right back with your size. I'm not worried about defending shooters on the road. Like, shots are going to fall, whatever case may be.
Well, Horford shot 40% and 28 from 3. That kind of helped.
Because they kept shooting so many threes because they didn't have guys in position all series long. Jaylen Brown took way too many dribble up threes. Like, he get a pass and just kind of dribble into a 3. They just took way too many.
So I guess we got our answer now, right? We got our answer now,
about
right?
Who's better? I don't think it's about. I think the coaching philosophy was bad when he set the precedent of we need to be taking 43s. Not we need to shoot this percentage. Like, if he said, hey, we need to shoot 42% from 3. That would have given the players a mindset of like, all right, I need a good 3. But Grant Williams shot so many wide open corner 3s, and every time he let one go, I was like, that's a brick.
Yeah.
Those red shoes were not helping him.
I'm just looking at stats, America.
Derek Williams was he was doing his thing, but when you start, like Charles Barkley said it, he was like, they shot 71 from 2 in the first half and still jacked up a bunch of 3s. And then they came back in the second half of Game 6 and shot like 68% from 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that, my math, that's like 69, 70% from 2. And then they had the 6, the Bill Russell 6 in the paint. And I'm watching the game last night. I'm like, get to that 6 and shoot it from there. Every single time they got there, either they got fouled because Miami zone, guys were just running across. Gabe Vincent was fouling every time Derek White took him to the cup. Strus was fouling every time he got anybody. If you had him on your hip, he was going to foul you. Bam Adebayo was getting fouls because he was getting fouls off illegal screens. I'm like, all right, take it to his chest. Because I text you, I was like, yeah, he needs to have at least 3 fouls by the end of the second quarter if Boston has a chance, because then you get him a cheap, quick foul early in the third, and now you can start grinding.
Go to work.
Go to work. Go to work.
And by the way, I will have you know that Grant Williams shot 48% this series and 43 from 3.
Who?
Grant Williams.
Yeah.
My guy.
What are his numbers in games 6 and 7? He probably was like 8 for 12 in games 1 through 5. But 6 and 7, he missed every shot he put up. I cannot recall him making at least the open ones. I'm like, I do not recall him knocking them. Horford hit a couple. Williams was playing. He was playing like a man who he was playing like the star.
Well, you know, I think
Tatum's ankle was. I mean, that did suck, but they should have done better treatment at halftime.
Well, like they shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. You know, we went over this. You know, they should have swept Atlanta. They should have probably beat Philly in 5 if they just prevent Harden. If Harden scores 42 points instead of 45 and doesn't hit a buzzer beater in Game 5, they beat Philly in 5. Boston just doesn't have a sense of urgency until, like we talked about, Mamba mentality. Jason Tatum doesn't have Mamba mentality until you absolutely have to have it. Like there's no Mamba
mentality. Been on the block with that bad ankle because Kobe Bryant would have been out there shooting threes. So like, all right, just get me on the block, and I'm just gonna pivot the shit out of his right foot, and he was gonna give you every shot he had in his bag off his right foot, and he was gonna let it fly. It was one point. So he rolled his ankle because I didn't turn the game on until after he rolled his ankle, and he wasn't on the floor, and it was probably 6 minutes left in the first. And I was looking at the score, and I was looking at the shots.
It was looking like 90s basketball out there.
And that's probably, I think when you posted that, that's when I was getting settled in. I was started watching the game. So I was like, I'm like, is he in foul trouble? Did he get a couple fouls? And then I saw the replay of the ankle. I'm like, okay, so his ankle's injured. I'm like, all right, well, tape it up, shoot it up, come back in the second quarter. And then when he came out from halftime and it still wasn't, I'm like, yo, what the other trainers doing? Because I've seen a lot of guys roll their ankle and it didn't look quite, not necessarily like the injury itself, because I don't know what his pain level was, but you see guys roll their ankles during the game and they get something torn off.
You were just talking about Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, just they get something. And then because like even Jimmy Butler in the Knicks series when he rolled his ankle, he looked hobbled, but he didn't get a break. He rolled his ankle in the fourth, and they just had to leave him out there. But I think if he'd have rolled his ankle in the first or second, he would have gone to the locker room and just put the machine on it, taped it up some more, put a machine on it, and just did whatever they can do to get him to come out. Because when Jason Tatum came on the third and he still was limping, I'm like, all right, well, take him out, get him back in the locker room, do whatever you got to do, retape it, retie the shoe, get him a new shoe, and just put Brogdon in and just ride with Jaylen Brown, Brogdon, Marcus Smart, Horford, whatever the case should be. Just swap out one light-skinned basketball player for another one.
Jaylen Brown, my guy, 42%. And 16%. Second one, of course, being 3-pointers. He is at his best. He is at his best when he's slashing. Problem is, like I always say, he's always dribbling off his damn foot. Like, I don't know, like last year in the finals, they beat Golden State and he could just hang on to the ball. I'm not blaming the series on him. I'm just saying, like, that didn't help, obviously, but they would have had a great chance to win that series if he wasn't turning it over so much. So you would have thought, and maybe he did, but you would have thought that in the offseason, that would have been a point of emphasis. Like, I got to get these handles better, but he's also like 27 years old. So, like, he may be what he is at this point, So, of course,
They were dribbling to the zone a lot too. Like Miami was playing a 2-3 zone and he was trying to dribble through it. It's like this basic, this simple, basic concept of breaking a zone is to make the zone move. You got to move a player or the ball. Because that's the zone works because it just shifts. So the two guys up top, the
which
ball
Miami
goes,
will not be able to do to Denver.
You got to move, and then you got to move a player opposite of the ball. That way, when it comes back around, Horford or somebody is standing in the corner waiting on the ball, and whoever is the defender, the high defender, or the defender down low in the 2-3 has to get from back over here all the way across. You got to discombobulate, or you got to get somebody to the free throw line and just get the ball.
They just don't have
the ball
any
right there and won't even turn around and shooting. It's like, why is no one saying, yo, if you get the ball right there 14 feet in this 2-3 zone, just turn and shoot.
They just don't have any IQ. Like we were talking last week about are they going to break it up? Should they break it up? All that stuff like that. And my answer was I would keep the two, but then almost everybody else could go. Like maybe keep Derek White because of the defense. Brogdon could stay, but get Marcus Smart out of there. And you disagreed with that. But the point that I was trying to make was get another ball handler in there to where Tatum doesn't necessarily have to be the de facto point guard. He's good at it, but get somebody that can initiate offense. Like if they had somebody like Mike Conley, for instance, he doesn't have to score or anything like that, but he puts people where they need to be. He sets it up and he initiates it. Then you cook him with something. Whereas Marcus Smart is just as brain dead as them.
That's the thing. I don't think a traditional point guard would have helped them because when Horford was catching the ball in the 2-3 zone, so you had two defenders at the free throw line extended for Miami. He was slashed to the middle. He get the ball like 14 feet. He was working off the concept of getting a good 3-point shot. It felt like whenever they were pulling out that whiteboard on the Boston sideline, and I could be wrong, but I think Charles Barkley, he was screaming at the TV as much as I was screaming at my cousin. She was posting on Facebook, stop shooting so many damn threes, and she don't even like to cuss. I think she said darn. But even she was like, stop shooting so many threes, because Horford was catching the ball up high with his back to the basket and just looking left and right, trying to get a pass to somebody. Like the zone didn't collapse in on him with the ball. But if he turns and shoots and he scores at a couple times, now you have to switch up the zone. So now he shoots a couple times and he gets you 4 to 6 points off 3 shots because he gets big in the middle. Like you just tell the big, get to the middle, get your hands up, get the ball, turn, shoot. So now either the defender right at the rim, that's probably Bam, he has to step out. So now that guy you're running on the baseline to make the defense move, he's open. That's Derek White. That's Marcus Smart. But instead, you got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum up top waiting to get the ball back. And they were just running this triangle away, like looking away from the hoop. The triangle is supposed to go towards the hoop. Like that's the whole point of moving the ball so you get a better shot at the hoop from either person in the triangle. Either of the 3 people need to be able to be a triple threat, hits the triangle, triple threat, all this other basketball stuff is like you need to be in a position to score. If you got your whole head to the hoop, you're like, all right, we'll just stand here, wait for you to kick it back out to someone. And then Grant Williams standing in the corner, he's going to try to shoot the 3 over Jimmy. And it was like, nope, that didn't work. It was like, it just was literally, I was like screaming. I was watching on my phone. I was just screaming at my phone, like, stop shooting the 3 because they were shooting bad threes. Like not even like they weren't even moving the defense. They just were like, I'm dribbling, I'm shooting.
I think Tatum has that like I can see over you, so I'm going to shoot over you attitude. Like no matter who the defender is, I can get above you and I'm going to shoot it. Jaylen Brown, I think, tries to force the action.
He was
Even when it's
shooting,
not.
they were long. He was shooting like a lot of 25, 26 footers.
And it's just weird because you're not even that good of a 3-point shooter to be doing that in the first
And you're
place.
ice cold for days. He was ice
Mm-hmm.
cold for a week.
The whole series, yeah.
He was 10%. I think I'm surprised he got to 16%. He was 10%. He was 10%, I think.
Well, I think he hit a
In
few in
game
game
four.
six. He hit a few in game six.
Game four, he was at like 10%, 10 to
Mm-hmm.
12%. So you're pulling up, and he was like Jason Tatum, having a triple threat. And he was like, he jab, and then dribble sidestep three. Like that, you could tell it's a shot that he works on. And you could tell with the dribble sidestep, left or right, it was a rhythm shot. If you're off, you're off. Jaylen Brown, there was a couple possessions where I think he just got the ball 12, 13 seconds on the shot clock. And like there was no action. And he took a dribble and he would just shoot it. And it was like,
Yeah, pull up at the free throw line or something instead of dribbling it off your foot, or you know what I mean, like force the zone to collapse. So I just don't understand. I don't know. I don't want to do the speculation thing, but I wonder. Like we speculated about this a little bit last week, so I don't want to rehash it. But basically, like, is there something that we don't know that's going on, or some kind
like
of
a
behind the
beef.
scenes? No, not necessarily a beef, but just maybe philosophy with they just tune out Missoula at times.
No, I don't think Missoula. I'm not sure he's an effective communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I talked about like Eric Spoelstra said after Game 6, we would tip this game off right now and run another 48 minutes, but we'll wait 48 hours. But those guys in that locker room, if we could play it right now, we would play right now. So as a person who's listening to him, I can receive that information. I can envision myself being in that locker room post Game 6 and him standing up there saying that and getting people around and people just kind of like a rallying cry. Missoula talks like a robot, and he's like it's like a forced Popovich Terminator kind of thing, and it's like I don't know if because I think Brad Stevens he was a communicator, Midwestern guy, Butler. You could tell he is one of like a wholesome coach. I think Ime Udoka is a big guy, commands the room, like 6'4", big body,
Mm-hmm. Played in the league.
played in the league,
Mm-hmm.
tough, gritty player. So he can walk into a room and challenge Jaylen Brown, or he can walk into a room and just the way he communicate with the press. Missoula, for some reason, it just felt robotic, and the way they played it was robotic. It had very little flow to it. The way the ball didn't move with a lot of flow. The plays he drew up didn't have a lot of originality to it.
So
It
how did they
wasn't a
win the
lot of.
three games that they won?
They won the three games because I think they're a more talented team. But even with that, in Game 6, they still almost blew it because when they went up 98, they went up 98-88. I think Miami called a timeout. Right. Boston's they had the ball coming back up 10. And so this is your opportunity to draw up a play and go up 12, 11, 12, or 13, depends on whatever kind of shot you got, whether it's free throws or two or
Mm-hmm.
three. And the play was like another three. It just didn't look like he had a play that was like, yeah, listen, this is where we step on their throat. Game 6, we're going up 12 off of this play. We're gonna get this lob to Robert Williams. We're gonna keep pounding them inside because when you had that lead and you go up 12 with 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, that can make a team. So you know what? You go up 12, you get to 16. It's like, okay, we might have to call off the horses. But you didn't. You allowed them to take the lead.
And Jimmy shot 5 for 21 that game.
He was ice cold.
but he just came through in the clutch. Once the clock hit 2 minutes, he said, "We got to go get this." And I think,
because Boston got robotic. I
mhm,
mean everything, and they carried it over to Game 7. Man, it was bad basketball to watch for a group of talented players.
mhm. Yeah, and I like your point that you made in our pre-meeting. That if if he was a third year coach versus this being the first year, they just had three coaches in 5 years or whatever it was, he's out of there. Like, I don't think he needs to be fired. It's his first year. Let him find himself. You know,
And he was
um,
thrusted into the
and
position
he was
post
thrusted into
scandal.
the position. Yeah, he didn't have a full off season to implement his style and all that stuff. So he'll have that now, and now you evaluate him going forward. But looking at the East, if Boston comes back as is next season, I still think they can get to the conference finals again.
Yeah, they should be able to win two. They should be back as a 1, 2, or 3 seed. I mean, maybe Milwaukee gets the one. I don't know. Philly's losing some players, but as long as they can keep Embiid, I think they can compete for 2 or 3. I mean, Cleveland, the Knicks. So your top four, because it wasn't really like a lot of down teams in the East that are normally really good. Like Toronto's not going to be that good next year. Detroit will just historically not be that good. Chicago keeps spending his free agent money, but they can't quite get right. I don't know
Maybe
how. I don't know how
Orlando,
you have Zach Levine, DeMar DeRozan, Caruso, Lonzo
Vucevic.
Ball, Vucevic. I mean, you have a 2K team.
Well, Alonzo ain't there though.
I mean, yeah, Lonzo keeps getting hurt, but hopefully, he can get his knee right. But even with that, you still got Caruso. You got the old boy with the fro, Kobe Williams, or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
So I
Kobe
don't, I don't,
White. Yeah, Kobe
yeah, I
White. You
don't,
got my
yeah, I
guy
don't see.
Patrick Williams.
So I was like, I don't see any. I don't think Orlando's gonna make this jump.
They might
So
get to a play in.
Atlanta is exploring trading Trey Young. So I can only imagine, especially I know people have been talking about them going to the Lakers. I can't imagine what you would get back from the Lakers that
Hmm.
would make you a top 4 team in the East. So
Hmm.
the same top 4 to 5 teams are probably gonna be locked in: Milwaukee, Philly, Boston,
Milwaukee with a new coach.
Cleveland,
Philly with a
and
new
the
coach.
Knicks.
Hmm.
And the Knicks. I think so. Your top 5 teams out of the East are probably gonna be your same top five.
Yeah, so
So Boston could be in that mix.
I say give it one more year. Like, at some point you do have to say, like, hey, we've been doing this for 6 or 7 years,
The
and
Toronto effect when they had to
right.
get rid of DeRozan to
Yeah,
get
like at some point you
Kawhi.
will reach that, but I don't think it's there yet just because of what we just said. The East is there to be taken next
Yeah,
year.
it's for the taking. Yeah.
Unless Miami's going to go out here and do something that they don't do or that we haven't seen them do in a
If
long
Miami
time.
goes out and gets Kyrie for scoring, and they can keep, if Miami has the money to get Kyrie, and they can keep their defensive core and that same tenacity, and realistically work Kyrie into their offense, then yeah, then they'll be in the mix for that in that top 5.
Hmm.
You might move the Knicks out and move
Hmm.
Miami in as one of the
Yeah.
teams that's vying for the 1, 2, 3, or 4 position.
Yeah. So I think that, like, you know, October 1st, 2023. I mean, obviously we haven't had free agency yet, but as of this moment, I think I'm looking at Boston as the favorite in the East.
I wouldn't make him the favorite because I don't know if the coach. I don't know if it's. I don't know if it was a coaching. His. I don't want to say ignorance. Or
His
immaturity.
inexperience.
Inexperience. That's the word I was looking for. I was looking
Mhm.
for. Look. I don't know if it's his coaching inexperience that costs or not necessarily cost them the series, but I don't know if the coaching inexperience is why we saw such glaring mistakes,
Mhm. They
or
got
if
there
it's
in spite of him.
his philosophy. Because if it's his philosophy, and that's why Al Horford never turned to shoot the floater, because his philosophy is on this play you got to kick it out 4-3. If that's his philosophy, then he's not going to make it. He's gonna be gone by January because he's expendable. Because not like they picked him.
Right.
It's not like they went out and got him like how
Well,
Philly
well,
just
well,
got Nick Nurse.
well, that's why
Like
I
they
said
they
I think it
pulled it
hurt.
internally because they had an internal rift and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to show solidarity
And
versus bringing
that's
in an
why, like I said,
outsider.
I think it hurt because not only did they lose Ime coming off the finals run, but they lost Damon Stoudemire, they lost Will Hardy. So
I think
they
they should have made amends with Ime Udoka.
I think that they shouldn't. I think that they didn't have enough at the time when they extended Missoula to do it, but they had to because they let Ime go.
Like whatever we never got the details, but whatever he did couldn't have been that bad because he just got hired in Houston.
Yeah,
And we are in a ultra I
less
won't
than a
say
year later.
we're in a highlighted time with men in these public positions whose when their conduct is sexually related and is determined to be misconduct, these guys don't get second chances in jobs. They get like when's the last time you heard anybody doing a movie with James Franco?
Yeah,
I haven't even heard any of the details of what happened. I just heard he was like a tyrant on set or whatever. But Seth Rogen's completely distanced himself from James Franco in the
hmm
Hollywood realm. So Ime Udoka gets hired by Houston, and Houston already had their own problems with Fertitta, the owner. So it's like they
hmm
already have issues, and then you have the
yeah.
whole
Because
street
I
club
thought,
connection with James Harden. So they already have like this kind of odd
yeah, I thought he
connection
was
with
going to
him
do a
and
year or
everything else.
two. I thought he was going
And
to do
he
a
got
year or
hired
two as
before his
somebody's right
extension
hand
was up.
man. Yeah, I thought he was going to be a right hand man for somebody for 2 years,
So it must have literally simply been
an
uh
affair or something,
an
or
affair,
hmm
and then somebody on the ownership group is like, I don't want him here. And it was like, so you just want to hurt your pockets? I'm not trying to, I'm like, let's keep it
I,
100.
like,
Like
like I said, I think they
Wembanyama goes to Charlotte and they are evaluated $500 million higher simply because they got the number one pick. So when it comes down to it, when it's business, like listen, don't bring your girl around me, true player for real.
I think they just painted themselves into a corner. They gave him the extension way too early. Before they even really probably knew what type of coach he was, and you hadn't seen a playoff run yet. Like if you waited like at
You
Texas,
not extending him today.
well,
You
no,
didn't
no,
do it
no, but I'm
already.
saying like
Like if
at
you didn't
Texas,
do it already,
yeah, like at Texas, Rodney Terry came in when Chris Beard got fired for allegedly biting his girl and all that stuff. He took over and he got him to the Elite Eight. So it was like, well, we got to extend him. Like look at this tournament run. He's a good recruiter. We could figure this out. Whereas with Missoula, do you really want 4 coaches in 5 or 6 years? So they
you
painted themselves
you
into a
definitely
picture,
yeah, you definitely wouldn't have
to a
extended
corner.
him this morning. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't give him an extension already, they wouldn't have had a conversation this morning and they wouldn't have slid him a contract based off of how games 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7 went.
And the Philly series.
And the Philly series, but like
And the
one, two,
fact that
three,
he
six,
lost
and
to
seven.
Atlanta. Yeah, and they didn't sweep Atlanta. But so let's transition here. So NFL has come up with a new kickoff rule. How are you feeling about that?
Awful. Absolutely awful. I think it's dumb. I think it's so dumb. I'm all for the fair catch, but you get it when you catch it. Like you don't get, and I understand that colleges implemented this rule, and Pat McAfee said this. I want to give him credit. He was like, you can't keep implementing rules to, and I'm paraphrasing, to like deter potential future lawsuits because then the rules never stop. Like because you'll say something like, well, we could get sued in 15 years for back injuries. So you're no longer allowed to blindside sack the quarterback. You got to just tap him on the shoulders. That could be the new rule because you're worried about in 15 years getting sued for guys having back injuries from getting hit in the back from standing in the pocket. Like the rules won't stop. The fair catch rule, and I know the kickoffs haven't really been, they play some factor. Getting it, kicking it, getting the touchback, getting the 25-yard line. That's the perk. That's the biggest perk you can get, other than now you're adversely affecting the game. Because if I get a nice pooch, nice pooch kick, and the guy catches at the 9-yard line and is like, all right, cool, we're gonna move it up 16 yards just because you waved your arm. I'm like, I purposely kicked it that way so we can trap you guys in the corner, make you maybe scramble, maybe you let it bounce and hope it goes in the end zone. Like we created this scenario where you have indecision because the onside kick is basically luck. Like you have to kick it off of a guy's face mask while he's blinking or not paying attention to get an onside kick. I think it's something like a 98% success rate for the receiving team. And the other 2%
Aaron
is luck.
Rodgers hates onside kicks.
Well, that's because the dude who jumped up, literally the rule is set up to where it's supposed to be unsuccessful. You can't have that many people run up, so you're only getting, I think it's like 5 players on each team that are actually making contact. So it's 22 dudes on the field. Only 10 dudes are hitting each other. They only get a little 10-yard gap. Granted, that's a lot of space, but most of those guys are just holding back because they have 2 layers of dudes to catch the ball. So you've already put teams at a disadvantage by that rule. And now the fair catch thing is like you implemented a rule. It's like the taunting rule. Like you implemented a rule that adversely affects the game that was never a problem prior to you putting the rule in place. So that's the only thing with me is like, were we having problems with the kickoff prior to? And I don't know if they have enough time to change the rule because it's like I don't think anyone likes it.
So the good news is, well, I think they're going to keep it, but the good news is that it's supposed to just be a year trial to see how it goes and if injuries, because allegedly kickoffs provide the most concussions from what I was reading on article on Pro Football Network.
Like there's George Kittle said he was like, I'm basically in a car accident every single week when I'm playing tight end.
So their goal, or not their goal, but their thought is it will drop returns down from 38% of the time to 31% of the time.
Now you're taking a roster spot away from a guy because that's how Turpin for Dallas made the team in the preseason last year.
And
returning those 2 kicks in that game.
Kickoff returns are my favorite play in football. It's high risk, high reward. You know, we saw Jacoby Jones in the Super Bowl against the 49ers.
Percy Harvin,
your guy, Cordarrelle, Devin Hester.
opening kickoff for the Super Bowl. Like, imagine if he would have fair caught that.
Yeah, Ted Ginn against Florida, even though he broke his leg on the play, but but it was still awesome. Yeah, but it was still awesome.
That was the craziest thing. I was so wrong on that game too.
Yeah, they proceeded to get stomped out. But yeah, like, so first of all, NFL, don't talk to me about player safety when we got Thursday night football. You added an extra game to the regular season. You got dudes going over to London for fish and chips. You know what I mean? Don't tell me nothing about safety. That's first and foremost.
Don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining.
Second of all, kickoff returns are exciting. Even if it doesn't break for a touchdown, even if you get a 40-yard return, it's a big momentum swing. It can change the tide of a game, where things might be going wrong, but you get that one break. And now all of a sudden that sets you up. You cooking with grease, right? Third of all, it says that so Jeff Miller, the exec of the NFL or NFL exec, he says that the kickoff play has the highest rate of concussion year after year, and the NFL can't do nothing. So what do we do about punt returns? Like
in my son's youth football league, you can return kickoffs. You can't return punts. So you can do a punt option where they just move the ball up, but then they changed it where you couldn't even actually kick a punt. You had to do the punt option. So it was like, you're not even gonna give me a chance to bury the team deep because you're worried about this mythical thing, safety. I'm like, on the next play, they're gonna line up and hit each other. Like, they're gonna run a pass play, they're gonna run a run play, they're gonna have a block play. The kids, like, they're going to hit each other all game long.
I feel like
So
that thing that Troy
it just
Aikman
doesn't
said that
make any sense.
I feel like that thing that Troy Aikman said on Monday Night Football that I'm not going to repeat right now, but that's what I feel like right now.
It's like, I mean, my yeah, we're not gonna say anything to get bad before we really get going. But my issue, like I said, we're a couple of veterans. I remember coming to work and like I was deployed to Iraq, and this guy was from Iowa, Iowa Guard. And at this point, I think I'm on month like 5, and I'm on my way out. I got like maybe another month and some change before my replacement's coming out. These guys were doing like 6-week rotations. So when I'm deployed, every Sunday I'll get my haircut. It marked I got this many haircuts left until I leave. So if I'm there for 6 months, it's 24 haircuts, whatever the number is. So whatever amount of number of weeks before I leave, every Sunday, my tradition was I would get my haircut. So we had a shop van, I had to drive it to the BX, get my haircut. So we would go to lunch, we get turnover, go to lunch, and I'd go on Sundays. So this guy comes in and he types up these rules. And one of the rules was you can only take the shop truck to the BX twice a week. The BX is the base exchange for all you non-military folks. It's just a store base, has your Pizza Hut, your food court, Burger Kings. Even while deployed, you have all stuff like that. Then you have your rec center and stuff like that. The barbershops in there. So he just comes up with this rule saying you can only take the truck to the BX twice a week. We're on 12-hour shifts, six days on, 1 day off, 12-hour shift. People aren't going to the BX like on a whim. And it's 6 people in the shop. We had 2 test stations. You only need 4 people to really run 2 test stations. So I'm like, why you come up with this rule as if the shop truck not being here was a problem? We don't go pick up our parts on a whim. We're not dispatched from anywhere else. Like, we don't use the truck for other than going to eat and going to do turnover, like, and getting your laundry. Like, that's all we use the truck for. So him making that rule was like, I ignored it because I'm like, listen, I'm in the middle of Iraq. I'm already bothered enough. I slap the hell out of you in this shop and go right back to Utah and be just fine. Career will keep going, and I will tell them why. Sometimes you gotta let people know shit like that. But it was like you implemented this rule in order for you to be the only person that wants to enforce it to a bunch of people who won't care. And I was that person. I'm like, nah, I don't care about that. I'm going to BX, and I get up and I go get my haircut. I did it every week. This last 6 weeks he was there, I went every Sunday. I didn't care about it at all. Unfortunately, NFL people can't do that, but this rule is implemented for a bunch of players and coaches. Like, listen, we didn't care about this because guys are still going to hit each other because you're going to kick it high because you're still going to do the pooch. You're still going to kick it deep. Guys are still going to run into each other. They're still going to run into each other on the punt. They're still going to run into each other on
They're
first
going to
down.
knock each other out of bounds on the punt return.
People are going to hit each other. You make the best possible helmet and you give the people who are playing the sport all the real credible information about what happened to them in the event that they get a concussion. You get a concussion, sit that person down with the neurologist and really tell them this is what your brain is supposed to, a normal brain looks like for a 27-year-old. This is what yours looks like after this concussion. Because of this, you have to miss this amount of weeks and be evaluated.
And
Like,
they signed up and they consented to this.
and they know you're a 220-pound dude running to a 300-pound dude
it's
who
going to
works
happen.
out.
It's going to happen.
We've
Like
seen Aaron
we've
Donald
seen
without a
wide
shirt
receivers
on.
get knocked out. I think it was Anquan Bolden got hit in the end zone and he had like a nasal injury, like some kind of sinus injury or something,
Chuck
like
used to break his nose every week.
yeah, these things happen. And you know what? Like the fan wants this stuff. Like we don't want the concussions, but you want to see football played as pure as possible. We're already protecting quarterbacks. I understand why. I don't like it,
The
but
roughing the
I
passer of
understand why.
Tom Brady against Atlanta last year was a prime example of you guys are you're not focused on the right
And
thing.
it was the Chiefs and Raiders when Troy Aikman made that comment on Monday Night Football. It was the same thing. It was just like, what do you want the defender to do? Like, and then they came up with a couple of years ago, they came up with the body weight rule. It was like, so you want this 310-pound dude to be so aerodynamic that as he's tackling somebody, he can somehow contort his body.
Chris Jones in that Raiders Chiefs game, he had the ball. He strip sacked Derek Carr. So at that point, Derek Carr was tackling a runner, not getting sacked.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jones had the ball. And I was sitting there once, it was another one of those things. It's like, I cannot be the only person with two good eyes seeing this. Because when the call was made and they reviewed it, it should be like, well, in further review, Chris Jones became a runner when he took the ball away from Derek Carr on the way to the ground. So he became a runner and Derek Carr was a tackler. There's no protection of the tackler.
Yeah.
But what did he say? He's like, oh, if you're running back, you can't run the corner over and land on him to try to score
right.
touchdown.
No, and I get it. The quarterbacks are the faces. The quarterbacks are, I guess, the reason that people spend money. They're the most recognizable dudes on the field. So
Atlanta versus the Jets is a $300 ticket because Aaron Rodgers plays for the Jets. Last year it was $37.
Yep. So I absolutely get why you want to protect the quarterback, even though I don't like the rules myself. But with this rule, outside of so if you're going to make a rule change, like you got to have tons of empirical evidence to make this happen. Now you have the number saying that the concussions, allegedly, you have the number saying that the concussions are the biggest injury that comes from, and it comes from kickoffs. But that would work if a dude didn't get a concussion coming across the middle. A tight end could come across the middle, George Kittle. He could come across the middle, go for a duck trying to avoid a hit, get popped in the ear hole, and he could have a concussion. So, you cannot legislate concussions out of the game unless you play some kind of tag.
Even if you play flag football, they'll still run into each other, so who's going to get a concussion.
Yeah, and I mean,
soccer players get concussions.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Basketball players get concussions.
It's a
non-contact sport.
And in every sport, that is a contact sport like this, football, basketball, all these sports have gone the way of the offense. So the product it stinks. We just watch football because we're fans and we're used to it. It's something that we grew up doing. So we continue to do it. But this is not the football that I signed up for.
It definitely is. My issue with it is, I understand player safety on individual plays. But I also know that if a guy plays a game Sunday at 1:25 in the afternoon, that game ends at 4:30 in Denver, but yet he has a Thursday night game in Miami. I don't know how much rest and recovery this individual is getting between Sunday afternoon and Thursday night. But yet you have one of those games scheduled every single week.
Yeah, and it's not as if the Thursday night games are always rivalry games. Maybe it's
pivotal.
the
17th game of the season.
Well, I'm just talking
whole,
about. I'm just expanding on your point. You know what I mean? If Buffalo and the Jets play each other, that's fine. But having Washington go to Chicago might not be fine depending on who they played the week before, like you said. So, it just doesn't.
And then they don't have it set up because at first I remember they started.
And now they're flexing.
They started in November. So the teams that played a couple of months, and then the Thursday night game started in November. I'm like, well, at least give it to where maybe a team can come off a bye week. I know early in the season you can't really do it, but by November, all the teams will come off a bye week into that Thursday game. So that way, at least they get a little bit of an extension, or it's going into their bye week. So if you play Thursday, you
Well, if you
You
play
get that whole
Thursday, you got like 10 days off or something because you don't play until the next Sunday.
exactly, it's something along those lines. That lets me know you're really, champion this concept of player safety.
But I want to
But
see
if you
how
play a
does this
game
flex going to
Sunday and
work though?
another one
Like,
Thursday, or if you play a game, if Jacksonville gets hot, because Jacksonville is one of those, they play 2 games in London. Say they just have one of those years where it's like you got your quarterback, it's his 3rd year, 2nd year with a new coach and a new system, and Jacksonville is rolling 7-1, 8-1, and it's like, ooh, you might want to get Jacksonville on TV. Yeah, but they just had 2 back-to-back games in London. Yeah, but can we get them on Thursday? So now they leave London and they play their next game against, Tennessee or something on Thursday because they're the new hot team where they were supposed to be playing on Sunday.
mm-hmm.
Is it player safety then, or is it like, man, I think these ratings will be through the roof? We watch preseason football. You don't have to do anything different. It's like Oreo cookies. They don't have to change those ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every once in a while you can dip it in white fudge. I'm good with that. But for the most part, just give me a nice double stuffed Oreo cookie. I'm good with that.
Yeah, like
I
dudes are
am good with
dudes.
that.
What was it? Was it Odell Beckham that got hurt during preseason one year? Uh, like somebody got hurt. It was a big name player that got hurt during preseason, and I know they cut a preseason game off to be able to add the new game, the 17th game.
Yeah, they
You
took
know,
that off.
so
But
so,
now they're good with players essentially not
but
anyone
but I'm
not
not so
playing any of their
sure.
3 preseason games.
But I'm not so sure that we won't have an 18th game in the next 10 or 15 years.
Man, 10 months. You mean next year when they have this owners meeting next February or after the
CBA,
Super Bowl?
baby.
Like they're getting that 18th game. I turn 43 next September. They'll have an 18th game before I turn 43. Because it's like $1 billion. Like
Player
every
safety.
game, like that additional game is $1 billion for the ownership groups of these 32 teams to split. $1 billion.
You
So
know,
they're getting that 18th game because what they're gonna do, they're gonna get a player as a point on the revenue. So they're gonna go from 52, I think it's like 52-48 split owners to players. They're gonna go either 50-50 or 50 and a half and 49 and a half. And they will give the players a couple more percentage points on the revenue. They're going to give them some other kind of guarantee. They're not going to get rid of the franchise tag. They're going to throw some other BS and they're going to throw the 18th game in and they're going to sell it with like, oh, we'll give you another bye week. So now the Super Bowl is going to be President's Day weekend.
Valentine's Day.
The Pro Bowl is going to be Valentine's Day
Don't let
weekend.
Valentine's Day. Don't let the Super Bowl end up on Valentine's Day. You got some
Who do you
decisions to
love?
make, buddy.
Who do you love?
I don't envy that. So
But yeah,
but
and I
but
and
yeah,
I can't fault the players for wanting to get their money, but like they'll throw them in this idea of player safety. That's like you're not protecting the players; you're protecting against a potential $10 billion lawsuit you're gonna get
I
in
don't know why they're
2032.
I don't know why they're advertising. I don't know why they're advertising that it's a 1 year trial run. Like if they do it, they're doing it.
I mean, they changed the pass interference rule after 1 year. They dialed back the taunting. I think they still call it, but they dialed it back a lot because it was excessive. Like
But I
you
don't
couldn't
think they
look at the
changed
other
the
sideline.
rules. I don't think they changed rules per se. I think like there was just conversation of like, hey, this is getting out of hand, so the refs just chilled a
But they
little
get no.
bit.
You remember the pass interference review
Mm-hmm.
where you could challenge a pass interference call. They got rid of
Yeah, they
that.
got rid of that. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's a
because it was like the
subjective call.
ref's not
Yeah,
going to change his mind. You,
right.
it's like you, it's like you want to impeach the president and ask him to review the evidence and give a decision on himself. Like, no,
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
yeah. So but let's throw that in the rear view and talk about Colorado throwing the Pac-12 in the rear view potentially. So one, is this going to happen? Two, why is it going to happen? And three, what?
I mean, if you don't have USC, if you don't have Southern California in the Pac-12, what are you selling? Like, I mean, what are you selling as a?
Can't be Seattle. I mean, I like Seattle, but it can't be Seattle.
I mean, I've been to Seattle. It's pretty dope. But if you don't have the two LA schools in the Pac-12, and the team that keeps winning it is in the mountains, and then you have the new up and coming team, Colorado, the other side of the mountain. It's like nothing about the Pacific is even related to your conference. Maybe you get Cal to step it up and they get better. Maybe Stanford gets better,
San Diego
but
State.
San Diego State. But if you don't have UCLA or USC, then you are you're going to either overpay to keep the teams you have, or you're going to get undersold because the SEC has everybody, the Big Ten has everybody, and the Big 12 got everybody else, and everybody else is fighting for scraps
Mm-hmm.
between the ACC. The ACC, the thing that they have is they have a lot of people on the East Coast. The East Coast is just packed with football fans, so you're not gonna lose your fan base. So your numbers that you present to the networks are gonna be like, look how many people watched our games, and then you play a lot. Like ACC is basically they're basically the Southeastern Conference all the way
SEC light.
east.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all the way east. So you kind of get that same fanatic fan base. It's not as those are fanatics as the SEC schools, the Georgias, LSU's, Texas A&M's, but then you have Texas, the state of Texas, and they basically can just say, "Oh, we're a hot Texas football school," so Houston can make that jump to the Big 12 because like, oh, we've been good for the last few years. They win the AAC, and now they're up there. So if you're Colorado, if you're Utah, like you got to evaluate like, okay, where's the money coming in? Especially if you're Colorado, because you got to pay Dion.
Yeah, they ain't have the money when he signed. And also Rick George, the AD of Colorado, said that this decision wasn't going to happen without talking to Dion, and that's where I kind of pumped my brakes and I said, well, yeah, that works if you think Dion's going to be there 5, 10 years from now. While you're trying to get acclimated into the Big 12 and take it over or whatever you think you're going to do. He ain't going to be
How
there, but
how good can Colorado really be though?
I mean, Colorado, 32 years ago shared a national title. They won the they won the Big 12 in 2001. They had 2 losses and people advocated for them to play Miami for the national title. So I mean, there is potential and
I
he's
was
going
an
to
airman first class.
he's going to
Malcolm
get
Tyree.
he's going to get recruits, especially with the transfer portal, the hype, but now it's put up a shut up time. You know what I mean? Like if he does all this stuff that he did this year, and I know the schedule is tough. They're starting out at TCU. We talked about they play USC and Oregon back to back.
You had
So
him. I think you had him 7-5, and I think best case scenario had him 8-4, right?
right,
So
something
I
along
mean
those lines.
that was
Yeah,
one of our first episodes.
yeah.
That's the thing.
So
I don't know how sustainable it is without if he doesn't get 10 wins this year. I don't know if you get the same transfer hype. If they go 6-6, he out of there.
well, and to answer your question more frankly, the Big Eight was in existence. That was the precursor to the Big 12 when they merged with the Southwest Conference. The Big Eight was in existence from 1948 to 1995, and Colorado won 5 titles, 3 that were unshared, so 3 by themselves and 2 shared titles. And they've been in the Pac-12. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So then the Big 12 was from 1995 to 2010. Colorado won 1 Big 12 title, which was the title that I referenced, and they've been in the Big 10. I mean, sorry, the Pac-12 ever since 2010, and have not won it. Like they played in the title game once and lost to Washington, but so Colorado had a buzz. It was just one of those things where 10 divided by 2, I could divide. That's one less every state, but the Pac-12 is in trouble, because as you mentioned, they lost the Los Angeles schools. So now here we are 4 months after we debuted.
How did you? Who fumbled that deal?
And they still don't have a deal. They still don't have it. They still don't have a deal right now. The deal runs out next year. And you remember, one of my get it off my chest was about them talking to the CW. So the Pac-12 is going to end up probably more streaming than they are traditional TV. Like they're probably going to be on Apple TV with the MLS trying to get seen. They're probably not going to.
They better come up with another Ted Lasso show or something to drive a soccer buzz.
They got. I mean, they got Fox right now, but I don't know what that looks like going forward. So the SEC's got their deal, the Big Ten's got their deal. The ACC is stuck, for lack of better words. The Big 12 got their deal, and initially, when the Pac-12 started talking about getting a new deal, they were the ones bragging, saying that they were going to get a better deal than what the Big 12 got. But from what I've been reading and just keeping up with this, Utah seems to be the holdup. With the whole four corner schools, Utah seems to be the one that's hesitant in pulling it back. But the problem for Utah is, if one goes, you better hop along.
Yeah, they're gonna have to. They can't stay. They can't support the Pac-12 alone.
Yeah, because what you going to do? Get Colorado State to replace Colorado? Like you're already trying to talk about bringing in San Diego State. You're already reaching to Texas to get SMU potentially. So if you're a Utah fan, does that sound appealing? Going to Dallas to play SMU.
If you can keep the Pac-12 winner plays the Rose Bowl, if they can keep that, I don't know how they brokered that deal. I don't know what that conversation was, but if they can keep that deal to where the Pac-12 champion plays the Rose Bowl and you get that New Year's Eve, New Year's Day bowl, and you have that, just that piece of football, college football lore, you have the state of California because it's what a bowl game is. If you can keep that, then I think they can just get all the schools in California to just stay in the Pac-12 because the talent base is California.
Mm-hmm.
Your top quarterbacks are coming out of California because it's a big baseball state and it's warm and those guys train year round. When these guys leave school early and they go prepare for the draft, they go to California and they have guys like John Beck and Jordan Palmer and the other guy, George something, I forgot his name, the other quarterback guru. All these guys are pretty much based out of Southern California. So they get a lot of the top quarterback talent throughout the state. So if coaches can recruit and keep your top quarterback talent in California, you keep your Pac-12 intact, you take the best deal you can get. Don't look at and count the SEC's money. Don't count the Big 12's money. Don't count the Big 10's money. What is the best Pac-12 deal we can get? Can we keep that? Can we keep California? Can we keep Oregon? And then can you keep your Utah and Colorado so that gets you a little bit west.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you prime. Utah's been your Pac-12 champion the past few years. A lot of NFL draft picks come out of the Utah program. So you need to just keep all of that in-house. If you can't, then Utah is going to take a nice deal if they can get an opportunity to leave because they're essentially, like I said, it was the former Mountain West. You have teams like Boise State. They'll just have to just keep connecting with the teams that are East. And then maybe you have Utah's in the Big Ten all of a sudden, and they're playing at the Big House every year. And they bring the cachet from being a Pac-12 champion 3 out of the 5 years. Or maybe they go on a real run and they get a college football playoff.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, like with the California schools leaving, or the LA schools, how much is this going to hurt, Utah and the Arizona, not necessarily Colorado because Prime reaching in the portal, but Utah and the Arizona schools, how badly does that hurt them?
If they can keep the California talent, like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are from California.
Mm-hmm.
If they would have gone to Cal and Stanford, and those games would have been on TV.
DJ Uiagalelei.
He went all the way to South Carolina, and then
Mm-hmm.
he transferred back. I think now he's at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
If you can keep your West Coast quarterback talent, because that drives the market. Trevor Lawrence was from Georgia. He went to South Carolina. Deshaun Watson was from Georgia. He went to South Carolina. Dylan Raiola is from Nebraska. He went to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young with Alabama. Tua's from Hawaii with the Alabama. So you have to figure out a way for people to land at LAX, land in San Francisco, land at one of these airports in California, and
Mm-hmm.
stay there. You letting
Mm-hmm.
people fly out of the state. You're letting all your talent fly out of the state because Jared Goff, when he was at Cal, they were on TV all the time, and he was known as he was going to be the number one pick.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget Aaron Rodgers,
Aaron Rodgers went to Cal,
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch. So you just have you have all this talent. Kevon Thibodeau, he went up to Oregon, but he's
Mm-hmm.
from California. So long as you can keep it on the West Coast, then you're fine. Like Mariota is from Hawaii, he went to Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
That still that keeps your whole Pacific connection. You got it all together still, versus Mariota's going to Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, man, you can't get this guy to California.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what the end game for the Big 12 is because it sounds like they're more basketball centric at this point, or their commissioner wants to be more basketball centric.
Not right now.
Because I know that he really values the Arizona program. But then you got rumors that came out last year that the Big 12 was going to talk to Gonzaga. They were going to invite Gonzaga potentially. Gonzaga doesn't have football. How does that work? Then there was a story last week saying that they were looking at UConn. So like I don't know if you're trying to have Colorado and UConn in the same conference. And
That's not really moving the needle.
it's not moving the needle because UConn's football is even worse than what I gave you for Colorado.
I think weren't they were playing like an FCS schedule, right? A few years back.
So
they weren't even playing like they were playing like one AA or some kind of
so they were FCS. They came up, I believe it was around 2004. They came up to the Big East because they were a Big East founding member back when they were Connecticut and not UConn yet. They came up. And Villanova also had a chance to come up as well, but Villanova didn't make the move. So UConn came up, did the Big East thing. Big East fell apart. AAC is in here now. They were an AAC member. And then they went back to the Big East for their basketball, and their football is independent. So, but the good news is they got Jim Mora now as their football coach, Jim Mora Jr. So, they had a good season this year. They went to a bowl game for the first time in 5 years. So, football could be on the come up, but once Jim Mora wins 8-9 games, he's out of there. So UConn won the national championship, obviously, in basketball this year. So if you could get a conference, you already got Baylor and Kansas. We'll add, West Virginia. Now TCU's coming up. Now you add potentially Arizona's basketball program and UConn's basketball program. Then hey, but all you're doing to some degree with UConn is, if you invite Gonzaga, you're just repeating the reason that the Big East died in the first place, because they had all the football schools tied to Seton Hall and Georgetown and Providence, and it just didn't work. So, but this guy, he comes from Rock Nation and everything. So, he's all about the big splashy move, and that's what he wants to do potentially.
Yeah, but as long as, like I said, as long as you can lock in, because I think college football is still more regional with the idea that it's more national. It's like, nah, a few teams are nationally needle movers. LSU, when they have a star quarterback. When they don't, they're not on TV a lot. When they had Joe Burrow and they had that historic season and Ed Ogeron and his whatever he was saying, yeah, they were box office. Nick Saban, box office in Alabama. But it was some years on the front end of that Alabama wasn't. It was a lot of people were talking about Barry Bryant and Jay Stallings and all the glory days, and people weren't thinking they were going to come back, and they happened to come back. You just got to pair. You got to pair the coach and the philosophy and the boosters, and then you get the players. I think Colorado has the coach. They have the transfer portal, so they're lucky there. But they're gonna have to win these games in order to stay relevant. The same way with Utah, Kyle Whittingham just wins games every year, and it doesn't take much to keep Utah fans happy. You beat BYU when you play them, or you're just a better football team locally than BYU, like substantially better, and then that's enough for Utah fans. You keep paying him his money. 44,000 people are going to pack Rice Echo Stadium. You're going to have all the red shirts, the must, and everything else. So you have that going for you. But if you can't get the recruits a second year because you went 6-6, Dion, it's going to be a lot of Florida State jobs looking real good. You think Dion's going to go home? And then if the Pac-12 can't get their deal done, you're going to lose. You're going to lose the piece that actually gets people to put you on TV, because you're on TV because you have the top quarterback. You're on TV because your coach is marketable.
Don't worry, Pac-12.
Because his name on the front of the jersey. Because, like I said, LSU was hot. And then when Joe Burrow went to the NFL, it was like, we haven't seen LSU prime time in a long time.
Don't worry.
Like an Oregon game or something like that. But yeah.
Don't worry about it, Pac-12. When you're on Netflix, I will watch you after the wife is done with Love is Blind. But yeah, I just think that at this point, it's just survival, because like I always say, in my opinion, 2029-ish, because the Big Ten deal runs out in 2031, I believe. So 2029-ish, you're going to hear some rumblings about Oregon and Washington potentially going to the Big Ten. Like, I think that those schools think that they're above the Big 12. They want to go to the big boys. So I think they're going to hold out and try to push and get that invite. But like if Colorado gets that invite from the Big 12, those other four corner schools are going to be right behind them, and the Pac-12 is going to be left with nothing but filler. Like I mentioned, SMU, they might have to invite Rice at some point, or UTSA might have to get up in there, but
they're going to have to just basically scalp Texas.
Like they're going to have to,
they can get out of Texas.
They're going to have to open the rule book. They're going to have to open the rule book and see if they can invite a team from Regina or something. Like I
just want to say that.
I did just want to say that. But
so we got, what was it, 12-team playoffs starting 2024?
Yep.
If the Pac-12 doesn't consistently get two teams, and then you said 2029-ish, that range. So you have about 5 years to get two teams into that. If you're not getting two teams into that as one of these traditional power conferences like Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, if you're not consistently getting two teams, because we know the SEC is going to get three.
I don't see how they can. I don't see how they can. Because
you don't see how the SEC gets three?
No, because no, I'm talking about the Pac-12 getting two.
Like getting two, like two teams in the top 12?
Not consistently. Like it might happen a year or two, but just from the standpoint,
couple of years, like you have to have you gotta have a team in there, and then because
perception is reality, and every year the Pac-12 basically cannibalizes itself. Back to you don't like it, but the weak argument, they cannibalize themselves because nobody can stand above. So even Utah, winning the conference, they still perennially lose 2 or 3 games every year. So, you got your 10-2 Utah or Washington or Oregon that gets in. I don't know if you got room to get another 10-2 team or a 9-3 team in.
Yes, it's gonna be tough,
especially
it'll be
without
tough.
USC and UCLA, because USC is the breadwinner. They're the name, So without USC there, your conference perception is just going to take a hit just because it's just like the Big 12, right? TCU was good this year. Yes, they got that ass spanked by Georgia, just like everybody else did.
They scored 10
But,
touchdowns.
but the whole talk was the Big 12 is down because Texas and Oklahoma. And no, it wasn't down because of Texas and Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma just weren't any good. TCU was good, but the way that college football fans think and the media think and the people talk, college football is the one sport that we don't support Cinderella. Like March Madness is
Oh,
built
not at
on
all.
Cinderella.
They don't want it at all.
Yeah, like the people loved the story of the Heat losing to the Mavericks. People would love to see, maybe not love, but a lot of people would find it fascinating if the Jaguars made it to the Super Bowl and, let alone beat somebody. In college football, don't give me none of that. Give me my Texas, Oklahoma, give me my Bama, LSU. That's how college football fans. So I think the Pac-12 is
No one
fighting
wants
that.
to see Kentucky at 12-0.
Right, because they'll just say that Florida or Tennessee was down. You know what I mean? Like they're not down, they're just bad, but at this point, that's what the Pac-12 is going to be fighting against in this new playoff and in this previous edition of the playoffs, the 14 playoff, the Pac-12 doesn't have any success and they don't get
Well,
teams in.
I mean, no one really has any success outside the SEC, and then you trickle in the ACC for the
Well, I
most
mean,
part.
Ohio State won a title, but you know what I mean? And they beat
Michigan
Clemson.
State got spanked
They did.
when they were in it.
Michigan got spanked.
Michigan got spanked.
And then
TCU just got spanked. Washington got spanked. Hawaii got spanked back in the day. Like I think but it's like these teams just.
And it's odd because Oklahoma didn't even win a game. Oklahoma didn't even win a playoff game. But but that's the thing. The Pac-12, when they got in, I mean, Oregon beat Florida State that year. The first year of the second year of it was the first year of the playoff, and then they lost to Ohio State in the title game. But then that was the end of the Pac-12. No more success, and that was 2014. So
had the Oregon. But you talking about when they beat? So then Oregon beat Florida State when James Winston fumbled. But that was pre. That was
no. That was the first year of the playoff.
That was the first one, yeah. So
and then they lost to Ohio State in the title game, and then the Pac-12 never won another game.
And the reason that they were in that position is because they got the best quarterback out of Hawaii to stay out west.
Right.
Just like how Florida State was able to get Jameis Winston, one of the best quarterbacks from down south, to stay down south.
But this Cal and Stanford, well, maybe not Stanford, because Stanford did get Andrew Luck, but does Cal still have that type of cachet where an Aaron Rodgers type or a Jared Goff type would go there?
There's so many of them. There's so many talented California quarterbacks. Even if you have to extend out into Utah, because when we talk about Jackson Dart, he just transferred to Ole Miss. He was from Utah. I think Alabama had another quarterback that was like one of the top players. I think he was from like either East or Skyline or Sky Ridge, one of those preppy upper middle class high schools in Utah. They had a top quarterback that would go to California to train. Mm-hmm. So they're grooming these guys. They just can't keep them in house. And I don't know if it's just the NIL deals like you can't keep. Maybe they get some Google people in there or some people who graduated from Cal who are working in these, the San Francisco Silicon Valley, and maybe they do some kind of partnership.
Well, I think Stanford.
That's where the money is. So it's how are you not able to get guys where the money is?
I'm not so sure about Cal, but from what I was reading, like Stanford just won't budge on the emissions and all that type of stuff. Like Colorado had that same battle because that was the reason Colorado wanted to move to the Pac-12 in the first place, because they felt they had more in common with Berkeley than they did Nebraska. And, now hanging out with the snobs got them left at the table. But, but that's the thing. So like Colorado, I'm sure like most of the people that actually run the school, the chancellors and people like that, they would want to stay in the Pac-12. They want to still hang out with these snobs because they care about the academic reputation.
The fallout.
Yeah, whereas the fans are like, no. We just want to win football games. Go where we can do that.
I
And
mean, the thing with Cal, like I saw a video earlier. We talked about it with Jaylen Brown and his academics. He was king of the chess club. He played at Cal. He had an internship at NASA that he turned down so he can join the NBA. So that region of California and that region of the country it produces a lot of tech savvy, the startup businesses there, just the Google intern. So it's a very academic heavy area. It's a lot like Boston in that regard, where Boston gets a lot of technical people and a lot of lawyers. Like that's their claim to fame for their academics. Cal, you get a lot of Stanford, you get a lot of engineers. Cal is the same way. You can get those in football players as well. A lot of offensive linemen have degrees in biochemistry and engineering and things of that nature. They often win a lot of top academic awards are offensive linemen.
Myron Rolle, over at Florida State.
With Florida State was in neurology. He wanted to be a brain surgeon. So you can find talented football players that fit your academic mold as well. You just have to be able to support either you have to get the coach with the personality, i.e. Deion Sanders in Colorado, Whittingham in Utah. Utah is a big engineering program, big physics program, big math program overall. So they have a lot of smart players, and they recruit California well. A lot of their transfers are JUCO guys from California or Texas. And they recruit Florida oddly well, like South Florida, Texas, and California. The JUCO route, that JUCO pipeline to Utah it's every year it hits. I
But I'm
mean,
sure some of that. But I'm
Pro
sure
Bowl
some of that.
cornerback Huntley, he went to Utah.
But I'm sure some of that is that they get to play against Trojangelis and go back home and all that kind of stuff too. And without that available, like I don't know if people are going to get excited, like players. I don't know if they're going to be excited to go back to California to play Berkeley or to go play Stanford or I just don't know if it's going to have that.
If you're gonna get a New Year's Eve bowl game.
You will, but then you're probably going to transfer. But then you'll probably transfer after the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are going to transfer out for the most part.
Yeah. So I think But do you think so? So like, do you think that? So when and if Colorado goes to the Big 12, do you think that Prime, will be able to navigate those waters? Like, do you think
Deion's already going to be in Florida State by 2027? Because either two ways. If he has success, he's going to get that path to Florida State because calm down, sweetheart. Because people like when Florida State's good at football. Like when Florida State is up and running, it's exciting. The ambiance, the fandom, Florida State fans are all over the country. They were like one of these true blue blood kind of schools. And he's a prodigal son. So if he has success in Colorado, that's going to be an easy jump for him to Florida State. And if he's not as successful, but he's still capable of recruiting Florida, then even that, a couple of 7-5 seasons and 8-4 season, I think if he has a bunch of players from Florida up to Colorado, the talk is going to be, well, he could probably still do that in Florida. So he'll end up in Florida State that way. So even if he gets immediate success in Colorado, Florida State is going to come calling. But if he can recruit Florida well, they'll come calling. So he has a few years at Colorado, however many years his son has of eligibility to be the starting quarterback, that will be determining. So once his son is NFL eligible, NFL ready, then you can kind of look at Deion potentially going back down south and starting his Bobby Bowden legacy.
And it don't even have to be Florida State.
I don't think it'd be anybody else.
I mean, it would be ideal, but I mean, maybe if he could get an SEC job, that might be something he would entertain.
Maybe
just for the attention, just for the the ability, to be on the biggest, brightest stage. That's what Dion does.
Yeah, but Dion also picked. He was a mercenary. He picked San Francisco. He picked Dallas because he was like, this team's gonna win it all. He's not going to coach Auburn
Mm-hmm.
if he can't. If he doesn't think he can beat out Nick Saban
And then
consistently.
Daniel Snyder tried to go get old Dion. You
But you got to do it.
got to do it. I guess if he's available, you got to do it. So of course, it is that time of show. But before we get out of here, we got to get some things off our chest. So I guess I'll start it off. So initially, when we were doing our pre-meeting, I said I was going to call out Bob Myers because he's running when the going gets tough. They just won the championship last year, won 4 overall. Can't knock him, can't criticize him. You know how I feel. The empire has fallen. Don't compare him to the Bulls. Don't compare him to the Lakers, so on and so forth. But I was like, is he doing his Sean McVay thing and just going home? But then as we started the show and everything, and I saw the Last Dance in the background, and I noticed that with my hat on, I resembled somebody. I felt like I should talk to him for a second, or about him. So, Scottie Pippen. If I had to rank my favorite players of all time, my favorite, I ain't saying the best, just my favorite, he's probably number 4. Reggie Miller was my favorite, Isaiah Thomas, Kobe Bryant, and then Scottie Pippen. That's probably my top 4 favorite players. I know y'all got better lists than me because y'all front runners and whatnot, but that's my list. So, so anyway, so Scottie Pippen, made the comment about how Michael Jordan was this horrible player before he showed up, and he was, this horrible teammate and all these other things. And then I thought about this. So it's apropos, that you're watching the Last Dance for me to say this. The same guy that didn't want to go in the game because Phil wanted Tony Kukoc to take the last shot. And by the way, Tony Kukoc made it. On the Last Dance, they gave him the opportunity. Like, if you could play that out again, would you do the same thing? Yes. And then he says, Michael Jordan made me look bad at the Last Dance. No, you looked bad because you're an ass. You did that. Hove went through all this stuff, so you didn't have to go through that. Then Scottie Pippen was Mr. Migraine in Game 7. I'm not going to knock somebody from having migraines. Like, I have never had a migraine. I imagine that they're awful, but migraine in Game 7, what happened in Portland, Scottie? You were a veteran by then. You were the mentor by then. And then you blew the Game 7 in Staples, now known as Crypto. What happened in Houston? You went to Houston, you left Chicago. All these people say that Michael Jordan's 1-9 in the playoffs before you showed up. Fact. They say that Michael Jordan didn't win until you showed up. Fact. They say he didn't win any titles without you. Fact. But what have you done without Michael? That's all I got. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
Well, I mean, this is a conversation we can have forever. But if you are in a sports group and you say you're a sports fan, I want you to look at this show as a prime example. We've been doing this show for a few months now, and not ever have we had a topic of LeBron versus Jordan. Every once in a while, we allude to it to make other points, but we've never sat here for 20, 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and had this debate, this era debate. Who's this, who's that? So if you are a sports fan and you're in sports groups or you communicate with me with sports, please try to be a little bit more inventive, a little bit more just in depth with your arguments. Just give me something that we can actually debate. Stop posting these random clips of LeBron getting his shot blocked and then posting all these clips of Jordan making dunks, or don't post a screenshot of Jordan 11 for 35 in game whatever and then you post LeBron was 12 for 7. Like, no one cares. Stop it. I'm sick of seeing the argument. I'm sick of seeing it when it doesn't relate. I'm just sick of it altogether because, first of all, there's nothing any one of you can say that's original. It's not new. Nothing you can say is new. Nothing you can say is thought provoking. Nothing you can say about Jordan maybe say, I didn't know that. Or anything you say about LeBron is like, stop. Just literally stop. Think of any other conversation we can have. There's active sports going on right now. The Stanley Cup Finals is about to pop off. The NBA Finals is about to pop off. Boston just lost yesterday. We can have a myriad of conversations, a multitude of conversations, a vociferous amount of conversations. Please stop posting these out of context memes every single day and then having these even more irrational, irrelevant arguments. Cut it out. Be better than that. It's obnoxious. It's just stop. Just stop doing it. Everything related to basketball does not involve LeBron. Everything related to basketball does not involve Jordan. And any comparison doesn't have to be argued out all week long when there's actual live basketball going on. I don't know how much that's going to help, but you can go ahead, cut it, edit that, and post that to the page because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
You know what my favorite is? Is like LeBron will have a bad game or like miss a shot late in the game or something, and then somebody will say, "You didn't criticize Jordan when he missed." Yeah, because Jordan hasn't played in 20 years. I ain't trying to talk about him. Like, yes,
Man.
I know that Michael Jordan went 3 for 18 in the playoff games against the Knicks, in the playoff game against the Knicks. I know that Michael Jordan went 1-9 without Pippen, before in the playoffs without Pippen. I know that he lost the game that he scored 63 points in. I know all that stuff. But like I always say, there ain't nothing that anybody on the LeBron side is going to say to make a Jordan night come over. There ain't nothing that Jordan Knight is going to say to make a LeBron guy come over. Like, we are where we are, however we feel about it. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to know. Here it comes, y'all. I just want to know what you do with Kobe. That's what I want to know. I just want to know where you put Kobe at.
And I think, the problem is this. I can talk about why I like LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
And I can talk about all his accolades, and I can compare him to all the guys that he tried to compare him to in the era that he played. And even you can look at his overall impact. Like, yes, he has more points than anybody's ever played the sport. There's nothing wrong with that being just a simple fact. You don't have to argue and say, well, Jordan did this and then he wouldn't play baseball. If he didn't play baseball, he would have 8 championships in a row.
But he did.
But yeah, once again, like that's not the conversation. It's like, yo, this dude scored more points than anybody's ever played the sport.
And stop disrespecting Olajuwon too.
So it's like, oh, the East is weak. Okay, quantify that. I'm like, then stop. Like, that's why me and Mike have these conversations, because, like, listen, the whole point is to have these conversations is to quantify and qualify the conversation. You don't always have to agree, but just give me the facts. Mike is a numbers guy. I'm a concept guy. I'm a construct guy. I don't really get into the numbers. I get into the philosophy of the sport. What I know about how the defense operates, what I know about this, this offense versus this kind of defense, or
you think you could take a team and beat Joe Mazzulla?
Yeah, probably. But realistically, like, I thought the Denver Boston matchup in the NBA Finals would have been better, because I think even though Miami beat Boston, I think that the size that Boston has and the way they use their size, they use Al Horford defensively and for scoring. They use Robert Williams' rebounding and score. They just don't use them properly. I thought that would have been a better matchup.
Yeah, that was my pick.
I was like, the concept of styles makes fights. I think the Boston-Denver matchup would have been better stylistically.
That was my pick, and I probably would have
has enough to beat Denver.
That was my pick when the playoffs started, Boston and Denver, and I probably would have picked Boston to win. Just because they would have had multiple bodies to throw at Jamal Murray. They would have had multiple bodies to like take out Michael Porter. You can still let Jokic get his.
Everywhere. Like Tatum, you could put Tatum on Porter and just exhaust him by making him defend Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tatum can just like, well, you don't get the ball that much, but when you get it, I'm just going to be in you. Or you can just even run Marcus Smart and Jamal Murray. I think it would have been a great matchup.
Well, like I always say, like I think that they have the potential, and I shouldn't say potential because they've been together for 6 or 7 years now, but to me, Tatum and Brown is what Paul George and Kawhi are supposed to be. Or when they went to the Clippers, the expectations that people had of the Clippers that were unfounded. I think
Boston
that
was already doing that.
Boston was already
Boston's
doing it.
been doing that, yeah.
Yeah, and but they just for whatever reason, they ran into the buzzsaw last year. He came up in there and he let them know that he was still here. Jaylen Brown dribbling the ball off his foot. This year, I can't explain it. Saying all I can say is they played stupid and Miami shot the lights out at times. That's all I got.
I don't think Miami shot the ball that well, though. If we look at the final score the game 6 was 104,
104, 103.
I think one game Miami scored 128 points. Last night, they basically took their foot off the gas. What was it, 103-82? What was the final score? Something like that.
It was something like that.
Somewhere in that range.
So Miami shot 48% from the field and 43 from three in that series, and 83% from the line in that series.
I think the free throw line, that's probably like the big surprise because they were shooting. I don't think they shot as many threes as Boston. They definitely shot a higher percentage.
Mm-hmm.
I think they played Boston well, but I don't see Denver allowing that. Like, I know we already rehashed it, but like I said, I think stylistically the Boston Denver series, because I was thinking it all day yesterday before the game started. I was like, in game 6 when I was watching, I was like, I think the Boston Denver series would be legit. I didn't want to stay on Spo of being on 03.
How many more threes do you think Boston took than Miami?
75.
That's actually a pretty good guess. 62. They took 62 more threes, and then they made 8 less.
That's why it looks like Miami shut the lights out.
Because they were efficient with it, and they were getting open looks.
Boston was just building up the bricks to block the lights.
Yeah, like Miami would take smart threes, like wide open.
Miami's 3-point shooter was shooting their threes. Duncan Robinson, he was shooting the threes. Jimmy Butler was like, all right, let me go ahead and throw a couple of these up, see if I can knock them down.
Which is crazy.
Bam Adebayo wasn't out there pulling up, shooting threes.
Which is crazy because Duncan Robinson had a chance to win that game twice.
Too much space, too much time.
Yeah. The second time he
had enough time to think.
Yeah,
he had enough time to think, if I missed this wide open shot, the crowd is gonna be so upset with me. And then that's how long he had the ball. Like, he was looked and I was like,
I'm gonna miss this shot, and they're gonna say, where's Tyler?
He's like, man, if I missed it, he's like, I can't miss the shot, I'm too open. And then the other one he took, it was in rhythm, and it was like, I just missed that wide open shot 2 sessions ago. Yeah. I can't miss another one, and he missed it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is the one and only Mr. Logical.
Listen, man, I am what I am, like it or love it.
And I am the Magnificent 2-5. And together, we are Sports Reports as ordered. Thank you for your support. Like, subscribe, review, leave us questions, give us 5 stars, all that good stuff, because it costs you nothing.
Free 99.
Yes.
And yo, you can at me with the Jordan LeBron argument if you want, and I will demand that you quantify your arguments why you can continue to have this, and you won't be able to do it. Trust me, I set this stuff up on purpose. I'm a great debater.
I'd rather do other stuff. Like I'm 2-5, right? 2-5, right?
Months. We've done 3 months and we haven't done it. I'm telling you, it's way more stuff. We talked about the city of Vegas and their sports, and it was a 30-minute riveting conversation that included the WNBA, hockey, basketball, summer league,
and baseball on the way,
all-star games, Super Bowls. Like,
hey, you know what? I got some homework for y'all. You want to do this Jordan LeBron thing? Nah. Give me Tim Duncan versus Olajuwon. Give me Kareem versus Wilt.
Let me know you know sports.
Then holla at me. And on that note, God bless. And we love you. Peace.
Ow.